Welcome to another edition of PuckHeads Insider Report. My name is Ed Combs. I'm here in South Florida. My co-host, Peter South, he is up in the bone-chilling cold of Windsor, Ontario. As always, if you like our show, please hit the subscribe button. Please like and please share. Pass the word to all your friends who also love this great game. If you have any questions about your favorite team, you can email us with any questions you want answered on our show at puckheadsinsider@gmail.com. That's puckheadsinsider@gmail.com. Also, you can send us anything you want on our Facebook page, PuckHeads Insider Report. Whether it's email or on our Facebook page, we're going to do our best to get your questions on our show. Now, let's get back to business. We are here in episode 8, and we got a show lined up for you today. We are getting into the NHL start date, the parameters of the season, the end date, playoffs, the draft, free agency, the trade deadline, the expansion draft, the tournament, who's in, who's out, division realignment, and of course, not only do we have, and I bet you didn't know, but we have a double chance for you to test your knowledge today. So, Peter, how are things up in the Great White North, my friend?
Well, they're not too bad, Ed. Just before Christmas time here, it's not as cold as usual, but it's still much colder than what you're experiencing down in South Florida.
Yes, I would have to agree. It has been chilly, but today it wasn't bad. I actually got 18 holes in, and we had a good day. It was a good day in South Florida.
Good to hear.
All right, Peter, we're going to start talking about the NHL, the NHLPA, how many games they've got scheduled, what direction they're going. We're also going to get into one of our sources. Fill me in on what you've got so far.
Well, Ed, the one big question has been answered, and that's the start date for the NHL. Looks like January 13th is going to be when the puck drops to start the 2020-21 season. What that answer gives us, though, is a lot more questions as far as divisional realignments. Even the Canadian division, which everybody thought was a slam dunk setup, is definitely not that. Issues still in British Columbia, Quebec, and Ontario, which are the home of 3 of the NHL teams. There could be issues that may cause some of those teams, if not all of them in that division, to come down and play in the United States.
With the start date being January 13th, when is camp? I mean, are all teams starting at the same time? Do we have non-playoff teams starting any sooner than the teams that were in the playoffs? How is that being set up?
Yes, Ed, we do have different start dates. For the non-playoff teams, they get to start on December 31st. And for the teams that were in the playoffs, their start date is January 3rd.
This is kind of a rhetorical question, Peter. So with them starting on the 31st, the rest starting on the 3rd, the season starting on the 13th, obviously there's not going to be any preseason games.
Correct. There's definitely no preseason games this year.
Well, we have a start date now, Peter, for the non-playoff teams to get into camp. We have a start date for the playoff teams to get into camp. We've got a regular season start date. Now we're going to get into going through the regular season, a tentative end date of May 8th. We got playoffs would follow, the Stanley Cup to be awarded the first week of July. With that rolling that way, if it all comes to fruition and their dates are correct, how are we going to see it all fall into place once the Stanley Cup playoffs are over as far as expansion draft, buying out players, the entry draft, getting everything lined up from the first round to the 7th round, signing of free agents? Have all of those dates been set up yet between the NHL and the NHLPA?
Yes, in the tentative agreement they've laid out a number of dates for things to happen. As you said, the season will start on January 13th. A big important date is Monday, April 12th. It's going to be the trade deadline. Playoffs are looking to start on Tuesday, May 11th. The NHL is scheduled July 15th as the last possible playoff date. After that, the buyout period begins where teams have the option to buy out players. And on Wednesday, July 21st, is going to be the expansion draft where the Seattle Kraken get to select players from all the other 31 teams. Right after that, they're going to turn around on Friday, July 23rd and Saturday, July 24th and hold the NHL entry draft of 18-year-olds.
They have free agency beginning not long after that.
Exactly. On the 4 days later, on the 28th of July, free agency will begin.
Okay.
And all this is in the hope of having the 21-22 season start back at a normal October start time.
You and I have been discussing this probably for a solid 2.5 weeks. And we've just gone through an entire regular season in about 30 seconds. But what we haven't discussed is pending realignments and what it could look like with, obviously, there's been discussions of all 7 Canadian teams in a division: Boston, Buffalo, New Jersey, New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Washington in a division, Carolina, Chicago, Columbus, Dallas, Detroit, Florida, Nashville, Tampa, and then you got Anaheim, Arizona, Colorado, Los Angeles, Minnesota, San Jose, St. Louis, and Vegas. None of what we're talking about right now, kids, is written in stone. Nothing. They've still got to come to an agreement. Obviously, even Peter brought up that the possibility of the teams remaining in Canada because of restrictions there, they may all 7 head over to the United States, as in the case with San Jose. Peter, please correct me if I'm wrong. San Jose is not playing in San Jose. They're playing in Arizona.
Well, they're starting training camp in Arizona with the hope that they'll be able to play back in their own rink at the start of the regular season. But the way things have gone in that region with San Jose and Oakland area with the COVID cases, that could be very tough. But like you said, too, in the Canadian division, British Columbia has yet to sign off, and as is Ontario and Quebec. And that's a total of 3 out of the 7 teams in the Canadian division where playing home games could be an issue. I mean, as we all know, the Toronto Raptors bailed and are playing down in Tampa this season. Wouldn't be a surprise to see the Canadian teams have to find a home in the U.S. for this season.
With that realignment being discussed, you and I have discussed different realignments, what might work better, reasoning behind it. So, for example, we are going to discuss another realignment, but without the 7 Canadian teams. Obviously, they're all going to stay together in case they're going to play. So you got a Northeast division with Boston, Washington, New York Rangers, New York Islanders, Philly, New Jersey, Carolina, and Pittsburgh. In the Midwest division, you got Buffalo, Columbus, Detroit, Nashville, Chicago, Minnesota, St. Louis, Colorado. And you have a Sun Belt division with Florida, Tampa, Dallas, Arizona, Vegas, Anaheim, LA, and San Jose. Now, the only issue I think the NHL would have with any of this is your Sun Belt division. When you and I discussed this, it looks great on paper, but your distances, these guys aren't, you're talking 3-hour time differences. Nobody's on the same coast. Yes, they're all on the south, except for San Jose. To me, they're trying to keep everybody local, as minimum travel as possible.
Well, one thing I like about my Sunbelt division is, and if the NHL does follow through on what they talked about before, they have a series of games so that, for example, Florida would go to LA and play a 3-game series, say against the LA Kings, and then maybe stay out there and play another 3-game series against Anaheim. Then it's not so bad. You're out there for a week and then you come back home. You know, with 2 teams in Florida, it could happen that way too. With it looking like the possibility of San Jose playing in Arizona to start the season and for who knows how long, you know, that also alleviates a lot of the travel too. So I think it can be done. And again, you're in the Sun Belt. You're a player. When you get to walk out of the rink in shorts, that's not a bad day.
I couldn't agree more, my friend. We do got a couple other things we're going to touch on in the NHL before we start jumping into juniors. And before we jump into juniors, we have a great question for everyone today. Actually, it's a twofold question, so we're not ready quite for that yet. But right now, I want to head into a discussion from an NHL source. This is of Peter's, and without getting into detail, we can say that this is an NHL player. We are very confident in our source. And the story you are about to hear, you may or may not have heard by the time our show airs. We're talking that we've got 36 skaters with an unlimited number of goalies at camp, 23-man roster, and a 4 to 6-man practice squad. One-way contracts on practice squads will make normal money, and then it goes on into the AHL, and then there's all kinds of different scenarios. What else is he telling you, Peter, about how things are starting to open up of getting everything started and what the players can start to expect?
Well, like I said, Ed, in the beginning, the fact that they answered the question about the start date, they really opened up a lot more questions on all the little details surrounding it. And one of them that my source went on about was the players' ability to be able to opt out of the season due to three types of reasons, one being family, medical, or just voluntarily opting out of the season, of which they would receive no pay. And their contract, even though it wasn't be paid, the season that they're being played would not count against their contract either. So basically, if they had 2 years left on their contract and they opt out, they still will have 2 years left on their contract.
Does their contract go against the team's salary cap?
That is up for discussion, but it looks like it won't.
Okay, if they have to, you said that if they opt out for personal reasons, obviously they don't get paid. If they opt out for family reasons or for health, if one of the players gets COVID and they have to opt out, do they still get paid?
Well, that's the difference. If they opt out before the season, they don't get paid. But if during the season they have to opt out because of COVID or something like that, they will still get paid.
So if a family member gets COVID or they get COVID, they got to go home for whatever reason to help take care of their family who has COVID, they still get paid.
Correct. It looks like the opt-out date is going to be Christmas Eve, the 24th. So that's right around the corner. Obviously, a lot of players have a lot of decisions to make about that.
I know there's been a lot of discussion as well as far as the health and safety of not just the players, but everyone traveling with the team. There's talk of testing and whether or not they're going to have it readily available, if the NHL can buy their own set of testing without disturbing what has to go to the normal public of the United States and Canada. So is testing still up in the air? I know the Players Association wants daily testing. The league wants it to be about every other day. They've got fitness testings limited to short speed tests that are on the ice. They're not doing anything off ice as far as I know. Do you know? Are they doing off ice stuff?
I think the players, for the most part, have been doing it on their own. But once a season starts and training camp starts, they're going to be really regulated on what they can do. Again, that's just, they want to make sure the players don't get too run down, especially during the season, because they are going to be jamming in a lot of games in a short period of time. So rest is just as important as fitness when it comes to that, especially, they don't want to lower a player's immune system and make them more likely to catch something.
This show will be airing on the 23rd. So you've got 8 days until non-playoff teams start showing up to camp and 11 days before playoff teams start showing up to camp. Are they talking about any kind of protocols for a bubble, a non-bubble? I know the source you have been talking about, you two have discussed this. They're going to hear the answer at the same time I do, because I don't know if he thinks and the players think that the bubble is a good idea, it's a bad idea. Traveling from city to city, how is that all going to work?
As I said, the Canadian government is making it tough on certain teams in certain areas. Well, I shouldn't say just the Canadian government, the provincial governments, primarily in British Columbia, Ontario, and Quebec. So there is still the possibility of a bubble being used or two bubbles being used in Canada. They may go back to the Toronto and Edmonton bubbles. Again, that remains to be seen. There's supposed to be a discussion on that with the various governments on Monday, the 21st. So we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. The player I was talking to is not thrilled about the aspect of having to play in a bubble, even if the bubble was in his home city. It just makes it very tough on the families. And, another factor that you have to consider too, and I mean, this is a factor for the San Jose players who are definitely moving, but it's like a lot of these players go into these towns, they buy houses that they live in for their families or rent condos and stuff like that. They still have to pay for those things. And then if they move again, it's uplifting everybody and moving. And it's very tough on the dynamics of a family, which have to be considered in all this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It does. I mean, it's not. People look at athletes and say it's just the athlete. It's not, especially in a situation like this. Their entire families the entire San Jose Sharks organization is basically uprooting the entire team and moving them to an entire different state. So that's going to be very difficult on the families, on the players, on the kids, the wives, the staff. Everybody's moving. So it's not going to be an easy play. Before we start heading into our next segment of what is going on in World Juniors, we've got a ton to talk about. So today's question, kids, is twofold. Part one is Team USA is playing in the World Junior Championship along with the rest of the world. Today's I bet you didn't know is which state has the most players represented for Team USA? Is it A, Wisconsin, B, New York, C, Illinois, or D, all of the above? Again, which state has the most players represented for Team USA in the World Juniors? Is it Wisconsin, A, B, New York, C, Illinois, or D, all of the above? Part two is what province represents the most players for Team Canada? Is it A, Ontario, B, Alberta, C, Quebec, and D, all of the above? So you have your choices there. What province represents the most players for Team Canada? Is it A, Ontario, B, Alberta, C, Quebec, and D, all of the above? We are going to get you the answer to both of those questions. We'll let you ponder it and see if your answers are correct. Right now, we're going to head into the World Juniors, and Peter and I have been going over so much stuff. I want you to start this because there's so many teams, there are so many players. Just Team USA, just Team Canada, for example. Out of the 24 players on the team, how many are first-round draft picks?
All but about 4 of them.
20 players on one roster, and 20 of them are first-round draft picks. What's going on with the World Juniors? Did they have everything set to start? Where is it all taking place?
Ed, you come up with some great questions. I will tell you, though, the roster is 25, not 24, but that's just a minor correction.
Yeah, you're such a thank you. Thank you for always being the one to find the minutest of mistakes. Is it really 25?
Yes, it is.
Oh, wow. Thank you for correcting me.
No problem, Ed. For those who don't know, the World Juniors is something that's held every single year, and it's a showcase primarily of drafted players and undrafted players for the world to see. It's held in Canada just about every other year because, well, frankly, that's the only country that seems to be able to make money off of it. It's going to be televised in the U.S. over the NHL network. They'll catch all the U.S. team games. And in Canada, TSN will be playing every single game from the whole tournament. So that's how big a thing it is in Canada. There's 10 teams in the tournament. They are Canada, Russia, Sweden, Finland, Switzerland, and of course the United States, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Germany, and Austria. They're playing in the bubble in Edmonton, and that has had its challenges already. There are supposed to be a number of pre-tournament games. 6 of them have already been canceled because the German team has 8 players who have COVID, and the Swedish team ended up with their coaching staff with COVID. That's been an issue. The tournament starts on Christmas Day. Canada takes on Germany in one of the first games. As I said, Ed, this tournament is loaded with talent. So if you're an NHL fan or a hockey fan, you're going to see some great, exciting hockey.
Of the 10 teams playing and all of the number 1 draft picks, I've noticed when I go through the rosters, a very, very big name who's not playing happens to be for, I believe, Team Canada. How in the world is the number 1 overall draft pick, which was taken by the New York Rangers, in Alexis Lafreniere, how is he not? I mean, the New York Rangers, correct me if I'm wrong, the New York Rangers told him no, he cannot go. This was the MVP in the last one, correct?
Correct.
Why is he not playing now?
It's exactly as you said, Ed. The New York Rangers would not give him permission to play. And also, Team USA is missing a very important player in Jack Hughes. Last year's, the 2019 overall number 1 pick, was not allowed to play by the New Jersey Devils.
Okay, so we've got the number 1 overall draft pick from 2019 not playing. We have the number 1 overall draft pick from the 2020 draft by the New York Rangers not playing. we already know or have an idea who the number one overall draft pick is going to be for 2021. Is he playing?
Ed Owen Power from the University of Michigan, who is a Canadian, is not playing in the tournament as well. He opted not to play and instead stayed with his team at the University of Michigan, got in a number of games there. He didn't want to miss all that playing time as Canada put their squad together about 6 weeks ago, isolated them in the whole bit. So he wanted to get actual playing games in at the University of Michigan. So yeah, you're the potential 2021 number one draft pick, the 2020 and the 2019 number one picks are all not playing. But as I said, that does leave just a plethora of talented players in this tournament.
Before we get into the 10 teams that are playing in this, I have a question because with the Ministry of Sport in Ontario stating that the OHL cannot body check, or as of now, if the season gets underway for the Ontario Hockey League, there's no body checking, which to me is retarded. You might as well cancel the season because these kids aren't going to have anyone showing up to watch. And before I go off on a tangent, I digress. Is there going to be any type of decision because the World Juniors are being held in Canada? Is he or she going to have any say in whether or not they're allowed to body check? If not, why can they and why can't the OHL?
Well, fortunately, what the Ontario sports minister has decided is not going to apply to the World Juniors. That is strictly in an Ontario thing and won't affect them because the bubble is out in Alberta. And everything is fine and everything's a go out there. So they're going to play hockey the way it's supposed to be played. That's kind of the end of that issue.
Okay, here real quick, because I want to get into my question on the 10 teams. Of the teams that are in the Ontario Hockey League, all but 3 are in Canada. You have 2 in Michigan, 1 in Pennsylvania. Hypothetically, are the 3 in the States going to be able to play any of the Ontario teams and vice versa because the borders are closed?
Well, right now the borders are closed till at least January 21st, which makes it impossible for those teams and players to cross the border to play. So if they did start up, which is not scheduled until February 4th, they would have to end up just playing amongst themselves, which I can't see happening for a 48 or 50 game schedule, whatever they're trying to do. You're not going to play a team 15 times, it's just not, or 30 times or whatever it is. It's just ridiculous even thinking about it. So that's going to be a big stumbling block for those teams for sure.
We have 10 teams in the World Juniors. The Canadian law or rule, which I don't know the difference, but I know there is a thing that once you come into Canada, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks, correct?
Yes.
So with 10 teams starting on Christmas Day, how long have these 10 teams and their staff, medical staff, coaches, all the people that have to come with Team Russia, Germany, Finland, Switzerland, Sweden, United States, how long have they been there? Has it been more than 2 weeks? Have they had a chance to skate? Have they had a chance to practice together? Have they been there for months?
That's a great question, Ed. They've had different rules, like it's been all through this pandemic everywhere. And what has been for these junior teams is they've been together and quarantining as a team in their home countries and getting tests throughout. Then they're coming over here, and I think they have a mandatory 4 or 5 day quarantine period here, as long with regular testing. But obviously it didn't work with the German players, like I said earlier, 8 of them getting COVID and the coaching staff on Sweden. They are going to do regular tests throughout the tournament. We'll see how it goes. I guess they're trying to emulate what the NHL did, and hopefully they can be just as successful as the NHL was in doing it.
I hope they are successful, but, I mean, are there teams in Canada yet? Are they there now?
Oh, yeah, they're all here now.
Okay, I just want to be clear. Even though the show will air on the 23rd, we're doing this on Sunday the 20th. So there, as of now, December 20th, all 10 teams are there. So what happens with Germany and Sweden, with the coaches and the players who came down with COVID? How long ago was that? Were they allowed to travel to Canada?
Yeah, they're all in Canada. The German players, unfortunately, are going to be quarantined almost right up until their first game on Christmas Day with Canada. So look for that to be pretty one-sided because they won't be on the ice or anything. The Swedish players hit the ice today, Sunday, for the first time. They did it without coaches, though. So I'm sure they had a written practice plan and the captains executed it. But that's the situation they had to deal with.
Question 1, that's part A. How often are they testing these players? Part B, if any of these players are positive, are they allowed to have players in the stands or backup players to help keep this tournament alive? Because if you get a team that gets hit with 4 or 5 guys getting COVID, you're out of the tournament unless you've got guys to back that up.
As far as testing goes, I cannot be 100% sure, but I think it's being done daily, like they did with the NHL during the bubble. Like I said earlier, the rosters are 25 players with a minimum of 3 goaltenders. So that is basically their emergency players when they need them or if they need them.
Next, we're going to jump into all 10 teams. We're not going to go into depth into players and any of that, but let's start with Germany and what they're going through. You're talking game 1 against Canada. This isn't going to be one-sided. This is going to be a slaughter because they've not even had a chance to practice or skate together in how long?
Since they left Germany. So it's going to be probably a week that they've been off the ice. And when you're talking a high level of hockey, being off the ice for a week is probably the equivalent of, normal people being away from the gym for, 2 months. Something like that. I mean, it takes a lot out of your conditioning and out of your timing and everything like that. Germany does and has been competitive over the past number of years. They're starting to put more and more players into the NHL. In fact, they do have 2 players on that roster who were drafted into the NHL this past year. At least will be competitive. They're not in the upper echelon yet, but they are definitely going to be a competitive team.
Do Team Canada and Team USA have any type of edge for the simple fact Team Canada is at home? The players are coming from all over the country, obviously, but they're in their home country. How long has this team been together? Have they been allowed to practice any longer than any other team? Team USA, all together, shortest amount of travel. They're in the United States. They cross the border. They're into Alberta, depending on where their practices are, which I want to say is in Ann Arbor, Michigan, correct?
Yeah.
So with that being Ann Arbor, that's a shot up to Alberta. Do either one of these teams have any type of advantage over the Russias, the Swedens, the Finns that are all coming in from across Europe?
Under normal circumstances, I would say Canada does, but this year, no, because there's not going to be any fans in the stands. So immediately home ice advantage is being taken away with that proverbial 6th attacker that sits in the stands isn't going to be there for them. Also,
I don't mean with the home ice with the fans. I'm talking about under this circumstance specifically is exactly why I think that, and this is me, you got to please correct me, is Team Canada's home. No, they don't have fans in the stands. Nobody does. But they are home. They are in their home country. They are practicing together in their home country. Team USA is at home in their home country, shortest distance traveled. So they're in Canada. By the time everyone else gets there, are they all arriving at the same time?
Well, they're all in Canada now. They all arrived pretty well close to the same time, about 4 or 5 days ago from this broadcast when we made it. Canada's other disadvantage, one advantage is they've been together practicing and doing their camp since mid-November. The other disadvantage, or the main disadvantage, is the fact that they haven't played any meaningful games. They've only had scrimmages, whereas the U.S. team is comprised of primarily players out of the NCAA who are playing and have been playing hockey. Again, having the shortest travel to Canada gives them an advantage. But like I said, playing together as a team hasn't been that long, which is going to be the same for most part, all the rest of the teams.
They're not the other teams are coming from across the country or across the planet, whether it's Sweden, Finland, Russia, Germany, the Czechs, all of these teams. How long has it been since any of them have played a meaningful game? Like you're talking the NCAA, for example, they have been playing, and they're playing very meaningful games. Are these teams being kind of maybe overlooked because they're not playing meaningful games for a bit?
Well, yeah, that's where Canada's at a disadvantage of Canadian players. But you look at Russian, Sweden, Finland, Czech, they all have their leagues going and they're up playing in Europe. So these players have been playing.
Okay, so that is a big advantage for them. But I know Canada has not been playing many games, if any, that are meaningful. They've been practicing together. It's a big difference. In your eyes, who has the best shot of coming out of this on top?
I think it's going to be a battle between the United States and Canada in the end. You can't overlook Russia's goaltending. They have a first-round selection who was taken by Nashville this year in Yaroslav Askarov. They're going to be right in there as usual. And Sweden's going to be another team to contend. I think those four will be the final four teams. Canada, like I said, they're loaded with first-round picks and defensemen and forwards, but their goaltending is still subject. It's not as prominent as some of the other teams.
So you're saying coming out in 2 weeks when this tournament starts to wrap it up, that your top four teams are going to be Canada, the United States, Russia, and Sweden. And then who do you see battling it out for gold, silver, bronze? Who are your – give me gold, give me silver, give me bronze?
Well, I'm going to say Canada for gold, U.S. for silver, and Russia for bronze.
When we're talking about advantage, disadvantage, about playing meaningful games, I want to be clear. These are prime, pristine athletes who are in beyond great shape. So it's not going to take them but a couple of games to be where they're supposed to be in game shape. Because there's a difference between practice shape and game shape. Ask any player who's played this game, and I don't care at what level. When you come out of an injury and you've not played and all you're allowed to do is practice, you get into a game, you're a step off, a half a step off. You just are. So it's not going to take these guys long to get into that. Before we go any further, Peter, because I know we got so much more to talk about, I want to get into our answers to our I Bet You Didn't Know questions. So are you ready for this?
Fire away, Ed.
All right, we'll go with question one of the two-part question. What state for Team USA has the most players? Is it A, Wisconsin, B, New York, C, Illinois, D, all of the above? Peter?
I'm going to say all of the above, Ed.
Absolutely correct, my friend. It is D, all of the above. Wisconsin, New York, and Illinois are all tied with 3 players. Couple notables. California has more players playing for the World Junior than the state of Michigan. Michigan has one of the fewest at only having 1 player. Michigan and Minnesota, 2 hockey hotbeds without a lot of top players in this tournament. Part 2 of our question, what province represents the most players for Team Canada, Peter? Is it A, Ontario, B, Alberta, C, Quebec, D, all of the above? Peter?
That would be my home province of Ontario.
Absolutely. By far, they blow everyone out of the water with 8 players. We have a couple with 3. I think there's even one with 4. A few with 2. Prince Edward Island comes in with 1 PEI, but Ontario has the absolute most with 8. Where did you come in? Did you guess right on I Bet You Didn't Know? We've talked about who's going to come in the Final 4, who we think might be with gold, silver, bronze. You and I might have a little difference of opinion, but I might be a little biased. And I'll have to say that I call it the USA gold. I will give Canada silver. But you know what? I agree with what you're saying about Russia's goalie, but I think Sweden's going to take bronze. I'm going to go with Sweden. Who do you pick? Who is your favorites to do well in the World Juniors? If you want to make a pick for your 4 or 3, your gold medal winner, your silver medal winner, and your bronze medal winner, there's going to be a laundry list of information on our Facebook page, PuckHeads Insider Report. Go to our Facebook page, check it out. We'll tell you where to see the games, when to see the games, and you can make your picks on who you think is going to win gold, silver, and bronze. We're going to find out who is the best pick. And once you put yours in, the winner is going to get a free T-shirt from PuckHeads Insider Report. It's got our logo on it. You'll love it, I promise. Let me know who you think is going to come in with the gold, the silver, and the bronze. In the event of a tie, we'll make sure that everybody gets a shirt, not to worry. Questions, you can also send them to our Facebook page or our email at puckheadsinsider@gmail.com. A couple other things we need to touch on, Peter. Some shocking news out of Washington with Henrik Lundqvist out, not playing, heart problems. Now, it's saying he is not playing this season. To me, when I read that stuff, it infers there's another season after he could be playing. Is he retiring, or is he going to try to do it again the following?
I think just like every athlete, he's going to wait and see what happens. It's the old, you don't say it's over till it's over. And that's the kind of competitor Henrik Lundqvist is. He won't hang him up until he absolutely has to.
He is. He is an excellent competitor, and he is outstanding person. Everything I've heard about him is nothing but aces. But in the back of his mind, the fat lady might not be singing, brother, but she's humming pretty loud. So
I agree 100%.
I mean, when you have heart issues are no joke. I won't put anything past Henrik Lundqvist. And if he decides he wants to play and he thinks he can do it and he's cleared medically, do you see the Washington Capitals telling me, yeah, no, I don't think that's going to happen? Or do you see, okay, knock yourself out?
I could see them giving him a shot because they still have developing goaltenders, and they were counting on Henrik being a big part of their team this year, especially as a solid backup who, in a fixed 56-game season, I'm sure they were counting on him playing 15 to 20 games minimum.
Two questions now. What happens to Washington with a backup goalie? What happens to Henrik's contract? Is he get paid? Does he not get paid? Does it go against the cap, with no pun intended? And again, what are they doing for a goaltender, backup goaltender now? With Holtby being gone, who's even there?
Well, definitely there are a few guys there who definitely are on free agent list. Jimmy Howard being one, and there's others that are available to sign on the dotted line for the Capitals.
You don't see Jimmy Howard.
Yeah.
You see Jimmy, really?
Yep,
do you know something I don't know? Do you know something about Jimmy Howard heading over there? Is there talks? Is he talking to them? If you talk to him, his agent, head to the Caps?
I think there has been a discussion, and that's as far as I know right now.
As a backup or as a
backup? And again, the free agents that are out there, they're going to be looking with a lot of interest to see if and what players opt out of the coming season, because that opens the doors for these free agents, and all of a sudden they may be getting the money they're hoping to get. So that's another interesting thing.
There are several players that are still Hoffman, still unsigned, but a guy that you and I discuss almost weekly on this show, Anthony Duclair, finally gets a contract, signs with the Florida Panthers, and again, this boggles my mind, Peter, and I don't know if you know anything, if you've talked to his agent. I know you have contacts in Sunrise with the Panthers. This kid signs a 1-year contract. I don't get it. The guy's got talent to spare. He's got speed up the wazoo. How is he signing a 1-year contract?
The new GM in Florida is Bill Zito, and he was the assistant GM.
I was just going to say, he was in Columbus, so he knows the kid.
He knows the kid, and I'm sure he's going to have him, a 1-year contract is basically a short leash. So,
right, but is it to see if he fits? Is it Anthony Duclair, I want a 1 year to see if I fit? Or is it Florida saying, we want to see if you fit, or do you still have that chip? And I'm not saying he's got a chip, please. I'm not saying that. I mean, this is because we don't know why he can't be more than 1-2 seasons anywhere. And now he just signs a 1 year. So I want to know, was it Florida that just offered him a 1 year? Was it him that said, I only want a 1 year? What is going on with Anthony Duclair?
I think it's more Florida want to see if he's going to be a fit chemistry-wise in that room, and also if he's going to be able to play for a coach that's very detail-oriented in Joel Quenneville.
How do you see him fitting in Florida? You and I have been down there. You've introduced me to people in that locker room. How do you see him being a fit with? I mean, he was in Columbus, so he was with a detail-oriented coach there, but this is a different kind of detail-oriented. I mean, this guy is very, very, I don't want to say polar opposite, but he's different than the whole situation he saw in Columbus with Tortorella. How do you see him being a fit here?
I actually think he'll be a good fit. With Bill Zito there, it's somebody to kind of guide him on what are going to be the inner workings, what's going to be the culture of the Florida organization. They're probably, and I'm sure they've had the discussion already with Joel where he's going to fit in as far as a player, what his role will be, what's expected of him. He'll know what to expect from the organization. So I think it could be a good fit for him.
Before we get this wrapped up, you think it's going to be a good fit for him? Do you see him signing a long-term contract at the end of the season, or do you see him signing a 2 or 3 year contract at the end of the season? Or do you see him saying, Florida's not for me. I want to be in a hockey city. I want to be somewhere, whether it's Toronto, whether it's Detroit, whether it's Montreal, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, somewhere in New York that is a hockey city. Or do you see him really saying, hey, I love it down here. This is for me?
I actually can see him liking Florida a lot. A lot of players thrive on playing in those hockey-oriented cities like Toronto and Montreal and Detroit, where everybody knows your name. And a lot of players, again, like that anonymity of being able to go to the mall and nobody really recognizes them. But when they go to the rink, they get to ply their trade and be successful, go about their business that way.
As much as I am a hockey town person, I got to tell you, Tampa is absolutely hockey crazy. When you get over there, I was shocked. Every game is sold out. Every single game is sold out. The fans go nuts for Tampa Bay Lightning hockey. It started the last 3 years to get like that in Sunrise. Now, 5-6 years ago, I would go to a game and people would see me in my jersey and they'd walk up to me and go, hey, what do you think is more rare, a Florida Panther or a Florida Panther fan? The only time they'd sell out is when the original six would come in because all the snowbirds were down. Now, every game, I'm having a harder time getting tickets to the games I want to see because the fans are starting to, we got a team here. And they do. They've got a great team down there. They've got one of the best defensemen in the NHL. So it's starting to fill up more. It's not quite Tampa yet, but it's getting there. And I think that with Quenneville, he's going to make it even better.
Absolutely. I think I think they're a team that's going to make some noise this year. Obviously, I don't think they're going to win the Stanley Cup or anything, but I think they got a good shot at getting into the playoffs, showcase some of the young talent they have. Well,
Peter, that's good about wrap it up for us. We're about out of time. I want to thank everybody for listening. So we do hope you're enjoying our show. Remember that if you like the show, please subscribe, please hit the like button, and please share with others. If you have any questions on or about your favorite team, you can reach out to us by email at puckheadsinsider@gmail.com. You can also send us a message on our Facebook page, PuckHeads Insider Report. Don't forget to go to our Facebook page to tell us who is going to win the World Junior Tournament. Who's gold, who's silver, who's bronze. For Peter South up in Windsor, actually the bone-chilling cold of Windsor, Ontario, my name is Ed Combs. Here in the comfortable confines in South Florida, we hope you have a very Merry Christmas. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to talking hockey again with you next week.